Hi, I'm Ed Amoroso from Tag Cyber, and I'm here with David Ratner, who is the CEO of HYAS. Dave, nice to see you, and I appreciate you making some time.
Hey, it's good to see you again. Pleasure to be here.
You bet. Hey, before we get started, why don't you tell a little bit about what you guys do at HYAS, and then we can get into your career and some tech and a little bit about the platform.
Absolutely. HYAS is a small but pretty rapidly growing company, and to be honest, we already punch way above our weight class. Two of the Fortune 5 use HYAS, multiple Fortune 100, one of the largest credit card processors, one of the social networks you use every day, international law enforcement, even the U.S. Department of Homeland Security uses HYAS solutions. And one of the main reasons we have so many marquee customers that work with us is because HYAS gives them the confidence to move forward in this ever-changing environment. Over the last 18 months, the rate of change has dramatically accelerated with evolving work models, expanding attack surfaces, net new attacks, and HYAS gives our customers and our partners both the visibility into real-time information and the speed and effectiveness to not just detect attacks before they have to inform their board and their customers and the press, but actually get proactive in blocking the attacks. And we do this by changing the paradigm. We do this by being the expert in adversary infrastructure and the communication with it. So, think about what happens before that malware attack, before that supply chain attack, before that ransomware attack. The bad actor has to set up the infrastructure they utilize. It's called command and control. And they have to do this before they ever even launch the attack. Even a phishing attack, the malicious actor has to create a domain and build a whole website before they can launch their first phish. And so by moving upstream and looking at the infrastructure that's used to control and drive these attacks, HYAS can not only have a fundamental advantage in providing visibility and detection in real time, but also can actually proactively prevent attacks from happening. And we do this largely through two SaaS solutions, one for threat intelligence, investigation, and fraud hunting, which we call HYAS Insight, and a second for proactive, advanced, and adaptive protective DNS that we call HYAS Protect.
Well, Dave, that was really good. I can see you've slid into this CEO role pretty well. I mean, tell people about yourself because you are a technologist. For you and I are both little geeks, but from that the intro, you absolutely have the CEO role down. Right? That was good. But
Yeah,
tell people a little bit about yourself. You have quite an impressive background.
you know, um, I am a PhD computer science guy. I originally did my dissertation in computer science in distributed systems and went to work, first job out of college, writing, slinging code. Um, and wrote code in some of the largest systems around the world. I think some of it is still running out in Japan and at AT&T and other places around the world, building very large scale, high capacity asynchronous messaging systems at the time for the telcos and ISPs and others around the world. You know, Eventually I kind of decided for my own personal path that I liked working with people more than staring at the computer screen. And that brought me out into the field to work with customers and to work with partners and to work on the overall ecosystem of where technology was going. But combine that with some of my personal passions. You know, I've practiced 6 or 7 different martial arts. I have a black belt in freestyle karate. I did a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I'm a fighter, and you combine that aspect with the PhD in computer science and in tech, and it's a pretty interesting way to approach where the future is going and what you need to do in order to build it or protect yourself.
So Dave, when did you first start thinking about cybersecurity?
You know, Even right out of college, after my PhD, when we were building highly scalable email systems, we were already at the time starting to see viruses, starting to see various different types of attacks. At this point, using email as the primary entry vector. Um, but just a couple of years later, as I spent time at OpenWave Systems, which bridged the gap between mobile and landline, I was already at the time talking to mobile operators about mobile threats and viruses and malware and other kinds of aspects on the mobile device. At the time, they were telling me that that was not something that they needed to be worried about. I think everyone would now say that they were wrong. But this was very early in the career that, looking at various different ways of exploiting systems and using it for nefarious purposes. I'll admit that, even in my own past, I dabbled in faking email and logging into email systems and, figuring out what you can do if you work around the system in some way, shape, or
Well, you can't fix an engine unless you break a couple engines, right? So, I
form.
mean,
That's very true.
as long as the intent is not something malicious, we all need to do that. I think that's important stuff. So, well, it's great that Miles and I always joke when we're doing videos that when we get a PhD in computer science, usually they have a hard time explaining, but you've got that down.
I
Now,
had the advantage of partnering with a boss at one of my companies who was a former Procter and Gamble brand manager, and he helped teach me business, and I helped teach him technology, and that's a relationship that we've carried forward.
so let's talk about HYAS now.
Yeah.
When you guys are working with a client, um, is it usually the case that they are trying to prevent some stuff or that they've had a problem? What sort of brings them to you guys? Because you provide a solution that could be used in any set of circumstances. I'm curious what brings people to your platform.
It's a combination of things, Ed. Sometimes there is a hard question that they are struggling to answer, and they need additional solutions, additional data, different approaches in order to answer that hard question. Some of our customers we have because literally they had spent 2 or 3 months trying to answer a particular question about mapping out adversary infrastructure or who had attacked them or what had happened, and HYAS could do in 3 days what they couldn't do in 3 months. In other cases, customers are looking for the confidence to move forward and not quite understanding what they should be doing, right? I had a CISO mention to me just the other day. He said, "Do you know I have brakes on the car?" I go, "No, why?" He goes, "You actually don't have brakes on the car to go slowly. You have brakes on the car so you have the confidence to go fast and slow down when you need it." That's what cybersecurity is for me. It's that confidence to move the business forward at the speed of business, but yet still have the visibility to understand what's going on. And what a lot of our customers are now coming to us is realizing that they don't have the visibility of what's going on to apply those brakes and understand what's needed at that time.
Let's get into a bit more detail. Now, you've mentioned cyber adversary
Yeah.
infrastructure. What in the heck is that?
So, look, in the very simple case of a phishing attack, right? You and I receive phishing emails all the time, right? With a
Yeah.
link that we're not supposed to click on. Someone had to build a domain and build a whole website and make it look like the bank, even though it's not the bank. And they had to do all of that in advance before they sent that email to you or to me, so that when we click on it, we see that, right? So that's infrastructure that that bad actor had to have and set up in advance of the attack. Malware and supply chain attacks and ransomware attacks work the same way. In essence, that bad actor plants some sort of spy inside the enterprise. Now, maybe it gets in through an email, maybe it gets in through a USB stick, maybe it gets in through a compromised password. But they plant a spy inside that enterprise, and then they walk around your enterprise, a process they call lateral motion. And the way they do that is by communicating back and forth. And one end of that communication is the spy inside your enterprise. The other end of that communication is the command and control infrastructure that they set up. And so they have to set up this mechanism of how do I talk to my spy before I can put the spy inside your enterprise and go do things.
Now, do you have to sort of quote unquote join or become part of this infrastructure to find it? Or what's the heuristic for identifying these CNCs and other types of things? How do you find this stuff?
HYAS, so no, you don't have to join any special organization. You just need to, quite honestly, come talk to HYAS about the solutions that we can provide. HYAS collects unique and authoritative data from a variety of interesting sources. And we put that together in a data lake that's unique in essentially two very special ways. One, and I know this sounds fanciful, but HYAS has data that other people don't have. And that allows us to do some unique things. And I know that a lot of people watching the video won't believe that, but if you come see a demo, you'll understand what I mean.
Is it open source collected stuff? Where are you getting?
No, this is actual fully legal GDPR compliant contracts that have been put in place with authoritative places around the world for us to go gather that data. This is not open source. This is specialized, targeted understanding of how does infrastructure get set up, and therefore where do we need to gather data from.
Excellent.
But that data lake is also really unique because we build the correlations and combinations between all the data points that we see. And so while anyone can detonate a piece of malware and figure out that xyz2.com is a bad domain and update a bit on their allow and deny list, HYAS actually knows that that domain is related to 3 emails, is related to 12 phone numbers, is related to 16 IPs, and et cetera, et cetera. And so we can actually automatically update everything in that causation chain, which allows us to stay ahead of DGA malware and allows us to stay ahead of that bad actor who's constantly changing their command and control and trying to stay ahead of the attack.
What do your customers do with this insight? Do they go off and make changes to their architecture? Do they install new things? What's a typical sort of activity or action that results from the work you got?
Some of our customers want to involve law enforcement and actually take bad actors off the field.
Yeah,
and there's a case study on our website that talks about a financial institution that did exactly that. Some of our customers have no desire to involve law enforcement and take that route, but simply want to get proactive and understand that, if they attack me today, they're probably going to attack me tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So how do I understand what infrastructure they have that they haven't used yet? How do I understand what infrastructure they create tomorrow that they're going to go try and use against me? And how do I manage my defenses now in a more proactive manner in order to actually protect myself going forward?
So I'm guessing your relationship with customers is not one and done. It's an ongoing relationship all the time.
It's definitely not one and done. And, actually our 2 products, HYAS Insight and HYAS Protect, actually work very well in conjunction with each other, because HYAS Protect is that proactive element which can block attacks before they happen and keep you proactively safe. But an organization might then sit there and say, we got attacked 4 times in the last month. HYAS Protect blocked them all. But let me better understand what was happening behind the scenes. And was this 4 separate attacks by 4 different bad actors, or was this one bad actor group trying 4 different times? And therefore, what should we adapt and what should we do going forward, again, in order to allow the business to proceed forward, full forward at the speed of business, but still have that visibility of what's going on?
I want to talk to you about the adversary. Now, you're one of the few people that I think really has insight into this. So what's going on? Like, is it changing? Is it just a bunch of nation states going after each other? What does the landscape look like from your perspective? I'm sure you get asked that a lot, probably even in Washington. What are your thoughts?
What's really interesting, we've certainly seen highlighted a number of, I don't want to call them new attack vectors, because I think supply chain attacks and other things have been around for a long time, but they've become a lot more popular and a lot more public lately. But certainly what we're seeing happening is, compared to 20 years ago when I was trying to protect an enterprise from, 2 guys and their dog inside their garage. Nowadays, what happens is, a low-level bad actor may find a compromised password, may find a backdoor. They're then now selling that typically to a higher level criminal organization who has the means and the wherewithal to deploy fully undetectable malware, to walk laterally through your organization, to deploy ransomware, to go through the process of trying to extract your data and sell it on the market, or hold you for ransom for millions of dollars. And you're seeing those actually very well funded, very well organized groups going out and doing that, and oftentimes being fed intrusions from lower level folks who just happen to stumble upon them and realize that that's an easy way for them to monetize it. And I think that's part of what's making it so critical to protect yourself these days, is that the bad actor you're protecting yourself is oftentimes more technologically savvy than your organization actually is.
Now, do you consider all that organization part of this infrastructure that we would be Like, is it more than just the, the computers? Is that something that you guys are also sort of rooting out?
You know, HYAS is focused on protecting all of the employees and all of the devices that they may carry.
Yeah.
This may be your laptop, it may be your mobile phone. It needs to protect you when you're inside the four walls. It needs to protect you when you're outside the four walls sitting at the coffee shop. It needs to protect that IoT device. I was talking to a healthcare company about all of the medical devices that they have inside their enterprise. It needs to protect all those servers that handle production traffic. It needs to handle, the embedded devices inside your car, right? There's a variety of of various different kinds of devices that have various different protocols, but all have the fundamental similarity that they all use DNS. And so by looking at the network layer and looking at where are these devices talking to, gives you unprecedented visibility into what's going on inside my network that I may or may not know about. How do I know when to hit the gas pedal and when to hit those brakes and what I need to do and why?
So I'm going to ask you to take your crystal ball out a little bit here. I mean, you've been staring at these trends for a while now. When you look at the adversary and you look at the kinds of things they're doing and you graph it, are we getting worse, or is it stabilizing, or how would you characterize this?
You know, I would like to consider myself some weird combination of a practical optimist, right? I really do believe that solutions like HYAS can completely change the game. But I read a study by an organization where they surveyed a variety of business leaders. Most of the business leaders admitted that they felt like their risks were increasing over
Yeah.
the last 12 months and not decreasing. And I think, if I take out my crystal ball, look, I think we've just scratched the surface on some of these things like supply chain attacks. I think we've just scratched the surface on what's really going on with ransomware. And certainly you saw ransomware, 5 years ago be a little bit of a nuisance. Now it's being combined with data exfiltration. So they're trying to get you at both ends of, hey, look, both pay me the money to encrypt or I'll sell your data on the dark web kinds of stuff, right? And so I see those attacks increasing both in frequency. I think you're now starting to see a lot more recognition that we have a lot of critical infrastructure around the country and around the world that probably is not as protected as it should be. I think we're starting to see that there are real gaps. And I think that we're going to see significant continuation of things like a solar winds, like a colonial pipeline, like other kinds of attack vectors continue to happen. That's part of the reason why HYAS wanted to change the game and look at the problem space in a different way in order to completely deliver a different kind of solution that could layer onto a customer's existing architecture, but nonetheless provide that actual visibility into what's going on and actually really do something to try and address this.
That's a super useful insight. For people who are watching who might want to talk to you about your platform and learn more about how you guys provide those nice insights and mitigation around the adversary infrastructure, what should they, is a website the best place to go?
Yeah, the website's a great place to go to. It's www.hyas.com. You can always, ping me directly on LinkedIn. But the best place to go is the website.
It's an important area. I when you first started telling me about this a couple of years ago, I thought it was a wonderful opportunity. I don't see a lot of companies that have figured this out. I think you guys have nailed it, and I appreciate the work you're doing on behalf of our team at Tag Cyber and all the people watching. Thank you so much for making some time for the discussion, and we'll continue to check in. So thanks so much.
Hey, appreciate being here, Ed. Thank you.
Wonderful. And for everybody else watching, we'll see you next time.